Imagine this. You're standing alone on a quiet beach at night, the horizon stretching infinitely in both directions. The tide whispers to the shore in soft pulses, and above you, the sky blossoms with stars. They glisten like distant fires, some tiny and faint, others sharp and vivid, but all impossibly far away. You know, intellectually, that there are more stars out there than grains of sand beneath your feet. And around those stars are planets. Billions, trillions of them. Some are frozen wastelands, others scorched deserts. But a few, just a few, might be just right. Like Earth, with oceans, atmospheres, and the whisper of potential. So, where is everyone? The stars shine, but they do not speak. The wind carries no messages from distant civilizations. There are no radio signals drifting across the void. No spacecraft soaring past our telescopes. No unmistakable signs that someone, anyone, else is out there. Just silence. Deafening cosmic silence. And this silence is more than absence. It's a mystery. It's a paradox so profound, so unsettling, that it has haunted scientists and philosophers alike. It's called the Fermi Paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" That question, so simple, so direct, cuts through all the noise of modern life, because when we look out into the universe, what we see should, statistically, be teeming with life. The universe is ancient, unimaginably vast, and filled with stars much older than our sun. Many of those stars have planets, and some of those planets fall within the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water could exist and life, as we know it, might flourish. And yet, nothing. Let's slow down and unpack why this silence is so haunting. Scientists often begin by turning to something called the Drake equation, a formula developed in 1961 by astronomer Frank Drake, to estimate the number of active communicative civilizations in our galaxy. It's not a hard equation, it's more of a framework, a way to break the problem down into manageable parts. You start with the rate of star formation in the Milky Way, multiply that by the fraction of those stars that have planets, then again by the average number of planets that could support life. Then you continue multiplying by the fraction where life actually appears, the fraction where intelligent life evolves, the number of civilizations that develop detectable communication, and finally, the length of time those civilizations remain detectable. Each step carries uncertainty. We don't know the exact numbers, but even when we plug in conservative estimates, the result is sobering. It suggests there should be hundreds, maybe thousands of civilizations in our galaxy alone, and still, the silence remains. One possible answer is distance. Space is big, so big that it's difficult to comprehend. The nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, is over 4 light years away. That means a signal travelling at the speed of light would still take 4 years to get there, and another 4 to return. But even that distance is tiny compared to the width of the Milky Way, which stretches over 100,000 light years across. So perhaps it's not that civilizations aren't there, but simply that the light from their candles hasn't yet reached us. Or perhaps we're listening at the wrong frequencies, or looking in the wrong ways. Maybe alien life doesn't use radio waves. Maybe they communicate with bursts of neutrinos or gravitational pulses, or by means we can't even begin to imagine. Our own technology is barely a century old. How can we presume to guess how a civilization millions of years ahead of us might send a greeting? And yet, despite all this, there's still a sense that something doesn't add up. If intelligent life is common, then surely some of it would have colonized the stars. Over time, even millions of years, a civilization with sufficient drive and technology could send probes, spacecraft, even artificial intelligences across the galaxy, slowly, methodically, like ripples expanding from a stone thrown in a pond. We call this interstellar colonization, a process where a species spreads from its homeworld to other star systems, building infrastructure, sending out generations of explorers. If life had begun even slightly earlier somewhere else, and remember, Many stars are billions of years older than our sun. Then such a wave should have reached us by now. But we see no evidence of it. No alien structures orbiting distant stars. No Dyson spheres harnessing stellar energy. No strange emissions hinting at industry or culture. Just stars. Cold, indifferent, silent. And this is where the dread begins. Because silence implies something else, something darker. Perhaps intelligent life arises frequently, but doesn't last. Perhaps civilizations destroy themselves before they can spread to the stars. Perhaps, as soon as a species invents powerful technology, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, environmental manipulation, it also invents the tools of its own extinction. Maybe we're staring at the ruins of the Great Filter, the invisible barrier that prevents life from flourishing beyond its cradle. And maybe we haven't hit that filter yet. Or maybe we have. Take a moment to consider this possibility, that the quiet isn't accidental, that there were voices in the void once, that civilizations rose, danced briefly under alien suns, and then vanished, silenced by war, by disaster, by apathy. And now, only their shadows remain, fossils buried in the gravity wells of forgotten worlds. Alternatively, maybe we're being watched. This idea is known as the zoo hypothesis, the unsettling thought that Earth is a kind of cosmic nature preserve. That intelligent species out there know about us, but choose not to interfere. Perhaps we are too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable. Like animals in a cage, we are observed, studied, but never contacted. That silence, in this light, becomes almost sinister, because it's not the absence of voices, but the presence of eyes. And then there's a final, bleaker possibility, that we are alone, that among the countless stars and swirling galaxies, Earth is the only place where atoms dreamed, where molecules built minds, where life looked up at the sky and asked, why? This is not an easy idea to sit with. It strikes at the heart of our identity. We want to believe we are part of something larger, that we belong to a grand community of minds. The idea that we might be alone isn't just frightening, it's isolating. Cosmic loneliness on a scale we are not built to process. But it also reframes everything. If we are alone, then this fragile blue dot is more precious than we ever imagined. Every life, every thought, every act of kindness becomes a spark in the dark, a flare fired across the emptiness. Still, the silence remains, unyielding, unchanging. And as we drift through this segment, let its weight settle over you, not to frighten you, but to slow your breath, to still your thoughts. You are part of a species that dares to ask these questions, that dares to wonder, to search, to hope. Whether the answer is isolation or unseen companionship, the asking itself is sacred. Take a moment to reflect on this. The stars have burned for billions of years, but only recently, through you, have they begun to understand themselves. So what does it mean, truly, to be alone in a universe meant to be shared? Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means everything. Or maybe the silence is simply a mirror, and what you see in it depends on what you bring. Let the stars remain silent for now. We have more questions to ask. And next, we turn inward, not to the vastness of space, but to the very fabric of our experience, time. What if it isn't flowing at all? What if it's frozen? In our next segment, we descend into the strange stillness of the ticking clock, into the illusion of movement, the possibility that your entire life is already complete. Because sometimes, the most terrifying void is not out there, but within. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen. Somewhere, maybe nearby, a clock is ticking. Each sound is a tiny metronome, reminding you that time is always moving forward, second by second, or so it seems. You feel time passing all the time, in the rising and setting of the sun, the cooling of your coffee, the slow but certain aging of your body. Time is something we trust, something we build our lives around. We mark birthdays and anniversaries. We make schedules and calendars. We live by the hour, and we die by it too. But what if we've misunderstood something so fundamental that it reshapes everything we know? What if the ticking of the clock isn't the sound of life moving forward, but instead the playback of something already completed? What if time doesn't move at all? This is not a question born out of fantasy, but one that scientists and philosophers have debated for over a century. And one of the most powerful and mind-bending answers comes from a place we often associate with certainty: physics. In the early 20th century, Albert Einstein shattered the conventional understanding of time. Before him, time was believed to be absolute, a background framework steady and universal, the same for everyone everywhere. But Einstein's theory of relativity changed that forever. He showed that time is not a fixed stage, but a flexible and relative dimension, intertwined with space itself. Space-time, as it's now called, is the true fabric of the universe, and it bends and warps depending on gravity, speed, and motion. And within Einstein's equations, a strange implication arises, one that has given rise to what is known as the block universe theory. Imagine, for a moment, that the entire universe is a single four-dimensional block. In this block, the three dimensions of space, length, width, and height, are joined by a fourth, time. Just as every point in space exists simultaneously in this structure, so does every moment in time. The past, the present, and the future, they're all there, all equally real, already laid out across the tapestry of the cosmos. It's hard to grasp at first. You might think of your life as a line, always advancing, always moving forward. But in the block universe, your birth, your graduation, your heartbreaks and joys, your death, they all exist, not in sequence, but in structure. They are coordinates, not events moving along a track. Time, in this view, is not flowing like a river, it's more like a landscape. And you're not floating down it, you're embedded within it. One way to imagine this is with something familiar, a DVD. When you watch a film, the scenes play in order, beginning, middle, end. But every frame of that film already exists on the disc. You perceive motion and change only because your player reads one frame after the next. The DVD itself doesn't change. It contains all moments at once. In the same way, the block universe contains every second of your life, all at once. You're not watching a movie unfold. You are the movie, already printed, already complete. This can be deeply unsettling. After all, our entire sense of self is wrapped around the idea of becoming. We believe we grow, we change, we improve, we feel time moving forward. But what if that feeling is just an illusion, an artifact of consciousness moving through a fixed structure? The philosopher Kurt Gödel, working from Einstein's own equations, proposed a version of the universe where time loops back on itself. He suggested that time might be an illusion altogether, and that reality was better understood as a timeless whole, static and eternal. It's not just science fiction. Many physicists agree that from a certain vantage point, the universe looks fundamentally unchanging. So what does this mean for us? If time doesn't flow, then change, as we experience it, is not something that happens, but something that simply is. You aren't becoming anything. You are every version of yourself, always. The child you were, the elder you may become, the mistakes, the triumphs, they all exist eternally, in their own slice of the block. This has consequences that ripple into everything we believe. Consider regret. It implies something could have been different, if only you had chosen another path. But in the block universe, there are no what-ifs. There are no alternative routes. Every moment exists because it must, because it always has. You didn't miss your chance. You took the only path that ever existed. It challenges our belief in free will too. If the future already exists, then your decisions are already made. The choice you think you're about to make tomorrow is already printed in the fabric of time. You're not deciding, you're discovering. Like reading a page in a book that's already been written. You feel suspense, You anticipate what's coming, but the ending has been bound in place from the first word. Some people find comfort in this. They see it as a release from anxiety. You cannot mess up your destiny because it's already yours. There is no right or wrong path, just the path. And no matter what you do, you cannot escape it because you are part of it. Your story is whole, complete, eternal. But for others, this is terrifying. It means we are actors in a cosmic play with no room for improvisation. We are not writing our scripts, we are reading them aloud. And that can drain life of its spontaneity, its agency, its spark. Hope begins to flicker. Because if the future is fixed, why strive? Why dream? Take a breath. Let that idea settle for a moment. Sit with the stillness it brings. This concept doesn't just live in science. It echoes in philosophy, in literature, even in spiritual traditions. Some schools of Buddhism and Hinduism view time as cyclical or illusory. They teach that the self is not moving forward through time, but is instead entangled in a web of perception, bound by illusion, what they call Maya. In those views, liberation comes not from chasing the future, but from awakening to the timeless now. The poet T.S. Eliot once wrote, "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past." That poetic phrasing echoes the block universe perfectly. Every time is every time. And yet, despite all this, we feel time move. We age. We remember the past, but not the future. We experience cause and effect. So what gives? Some physicists believe that our sense of the present is a kind of cognitive illusion, an emergent property of consciousness. Our brains process moments in sequence because it's evolutionarily useful. A brain that experiences time linearly can react to threats, predict consequences, and plan for survival. But this subjective experience may not reflect the deeper nature of reality. Others argue that what we call the flow of time is just a byproduct of increasing entropy, the natural tendency for systems to move from order to disorder. In this view, time's arrow, the direction from past to future, is simply the direction in which things become more disordered. It's not that time flows, it's that we perceive the universe in the direction that entropy increases. If this is true, then time, as we know it, is nothing more than an illusion born of thermodynamics, a ghost of heat and chaos projected onto our minds. So where does this leave us? You, right now, listening to this, are not riding on a river of time. You are suspended in it, like a figure in amber. Your life, your thoughts, your memories, they are coordinates in a vast, unmoving structure. The clock doesn't tick. It doesn't move forward. It simply is. And maybe that's okay, because even if time is an illusion, meaning is not. You are here. You are experiencing. That alone is miraculous. Whether or not you are free, you are aware. And in that awareness, there is something sacred. So take another breath, slow, deep, and quiet. If your future is already written, perhaps it contains moments of wonder you've yet to discover. And if your past is frozen in the block, it means every joy you've ever felt still exists somewhere. Unchanging, eternal, untouched. In the grand tapestry of the block universe, your existence is not fleeting. It is permanent. Your laughter, your tears, your questions, they are not lost in time. They are time. Now that we've questioned time, what about reality itself? If time is frozen, can we even trust the stage it plays upon? What if all of this, space, matter, even thought, is just simulation, just code? In the next segment, we will step beyond the physical and into the digital cage. We will ask a question more unsettling than any before. Are we real, or are we being rendered? You open your phone, you scroll, you swipe. A voice from a speaker suggests your next meal. Your GPS predicts the traffic before it happens. And when you speak to an algorithm, it often understands you better than the people around you. You're surrounded by code, lines upon lines, silently governing your choices, shaping your view of the world. But what if the code runs deeper? What if the floor beneath your feet, the stars above your head, the thoughts inside your mind are not the product of physics or biology, but of simulation, not as metaphor, not as art, but literally? What if this world, this life, is software? This is the question posed by the simulation hypothesis, and it is among the most disturbing, intellectually compelling, and persistently debated ideas in modern philosophy and theoretical physics. It asks, if we can already simulate tiny digital worlds, what's to say we're not already inside one ourselves? The modern articulation of this idea comes from philosopher Nick Bostrom, who in 2003 proposed a now famous trilemma. He argued that at least one of the following must be true. 1. All civilizations go extinct before developing the ability to run high-fidelity simulations of consciousness. 2. Civilizations who do reach such capability choose not to run simulations for moral, ethical, or practical reasons. Or 3. We are almost certainly living in a simulation. Why would that be the case? Because if simulations are possible, then future civilizations, or even advanced alien intelligences, could run billions, even trillions, of simulations of their ancestors. Each simulation would be populated with conscious beings like us, unaware that their world is artificial. In such a scenario, the number of simulated minds would vastly outnumber the number of original, real minds. And statistically, that would mean you are more likely to be simulated than real. Imagine you walk into a casino and there are 10 dice on the table. 9 of them are loaded to always roll 6s. 1 is fair. If you roll a 6, are you special? Or are you simply one of the 9? Now extend that analogy to reality itself. It's not just philosophical speculation. Our technology is already walking toward that horizon. We build complex simulations every day. We simulate weather systems, traffic flows, entire cities. In the world of gaming, we create virtual environments populated with digital beings, avatars, bots, procedurally generated characters that react to players and adapt to choices. Games like The Sims simulate the mundane aspects of human life, love, careers, death. More advanced systems like neural networks learn to predict, adapt, even improvise. Every year, the boundary between digital illusion and physical experience grows thinner. So now imagine a future where computing power is near limitless, where you can simulate not just weather or biology, but minds, consciousness, souls. Wouldn't some civilization try? Maybe to study their ancestors, maybe for entertainment, maybe to answer questions that can't be solved with equations alone. A simulation is cleaner than a history book. You can rewind it, fast forward, change a variable. Perhaps entire libraries of simulated Earths are stored somewhere, each one with different outcomes, different histories. In one, dinosaurs never died out. In another, Rome never fell. And in this one, you're listening now. This line of thought may sound like science fiction, but many respected thinkers have entertained it seriously. Physicist Max Tegmark considers the possibility that the universe is not just described by mathematics, but made of it. Elon Musk once said the odds we're not in a simulation are 1 in billions. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson admitted it's not a crazy proposition. And what does this mean for you? If reality is a simulation, then your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams may be rendered, produced by lines of code, simulated neuron by simulated neuron. The love you feel might be a subroutine. The sadness you carry might be data. Your memories might not be yours at all, but artificially generated by the system to give you a sense of continuity. Think about that. The deepest truths you hold, the sound of your mother's voice, the smell of summer rain, the ache of your first heartbreak, could be artifacts of a script, written to convince you of your own reality, not lies, but illusions, real within the system, meaningful within the code, but unreal outside of it. And if there is an outside, what lies there? A godlike programmer, A post-human society, rows of cold, humming servers tucked in a lab of a reality we'll never see? Is our universe just a file on a desktop? A folder marked EarthSim Final V3? There's another kind of horror here too. Not that you're being watched, but that you're not. That the simulation is abandoned, left running, forgotten. That there is no observer, no debugger. That we are echoes inside an empty shell, thinking we're alive, dreaming we're free. And what of death? If you are simulated, what happens when you die? Does your program end? Are you archived, deleted, recycled into a new simulation? Or do you simply vanish, code collapsing back into silence? Some have speculated that death in a simulation might be akin to waking up, a glitch that returns your consciousness to a higher realm, if such a realm exists. Others fear the opposite, that death is the termination of the process, a shutdown, a game over screen no one sees. But perhaps the most disturbing possibility is this: you are not the player. You are the non-playable character, the background process. You were never meant to wonder, never meant to ask. You were coded to fill space, to respond to input, to create the illusion of fullness for someone else's experience. A prop, a narrative device, a side quest in someone else's story. And yet, here you are, wondering, asking. If you were meant to be just a script, then your curiosity itself might be the glitch, the anomaly, the moment the simulation slips. There's something terrifying in that. And also, something beautiful. Because even if the simulation is real, even if your world is built from code and logic gates, the wonder you feel as you question it, that awe, that dread, that feels real. The pain you carry is real to you. The joy you feel when the wind brushes your cheek is real to you. Maybe that's all that matters. You might ask, so what if it's fake? If I still feel love, if I still see the stars, if I still laugh and cry, isn't that enough? Maybe it is, and yet the question lingers, doesn't it? Because the simulation hypothesis doesn't just cast doubt on your surroundings, it casts doubt on meaning itself. If this world was created as an experiment, do you matter? If it was created for entertainment, are you sacred or disposable? If it was created for no reason at all, is that worse? Loneliness here takes a new shape. It's not the cosmic silence of an empty universe. It's the existential silence of not knowing whether anything around you is truly real. It's the haunting possibility that no one outside this system will ever hear your voice, that you are speaking into a vacuum, not of space, but of purpose. So let this question drift in your mind. Would you live differently if you knew this was all artificial? Would you be braver? Would you chase your dreams more recklessly, knowing nothing is permanent? Or would you give in to apathy, to nihilism, believing that nothing matters? Maybe the truth doesn't matter as much as what we do with the question, and maybe the question is the point, because to question your own reality is an act of consciousness, an act of agency, a flare fired into the dark. And if anyone is watching, be it God, programmer, or spectator, then they will see it. And they will know you were more than a line of code. You wondered, you tried to wake up, and perhaps in that small act of rebellion, of curiosity, of trembling awareness, you were more real than anything else in this system. Now breathe, gently, let the uncertainty settle, because whether we are real or not, we still have the mirror of the mind, the only interface between what we call out there and what we feel inside. In the next segment, we turn away from stars and scripts and simulations and look within, into the fragile architecture of thought, memory, and belief, into the quiet chaos of the human mind. And we ask, if the world might be fake, can we even trust ourselves? Close your eyes for a moment. Take a breath. Now, think of your earliest memory. Perhaps it's the sound of your mother's voice calling you from the hallway, or the softness of a stuffed animal clutched tight to your chest. Maybe it's sunlight streaming through the window on a lazy morning, or the flickering shadow of a birthday candle right before it's blown out. Now ask yourself, is that memory real? Did it happen exactly that way? Or did your mind, somewhere along the way, fill in the blanks with imagination and suggestion? This isn't a trick. It's a question that strikes at the very foundation of who you believe you are. Because if memory is the record of self and memory is faulty, then what exactly is the self? We often imagine our minds as sanctuaries, private, reliable, sacred, a place where truth lives, where we retreat for clarity, direction, meaning. But what if the mind isn't a sanctuary at all? What if it's a trickster, a master illusionist, a compulsive, chaotic storyteller that only feels trustworthy because we have no alternative? The uncomfortable truth is that your mind lies to you all the time, and not out of malice or dysfunction, but because that's simply what it does. Let's begin with memory, the bedrock of personal identity. For most of us, memory is sacred. It's how we construct the story of our lives. We remember the people we love, the places we've been, the choices we've made. We use memory to justify who we are, to prove continuity from past to present. But here's the twist. Memory is not like a video camera. It does not record, it reconstructs. Psychologists have long known that human memory is malleable, fragile, and profoundly unreliable. Every time you recall a memory, you don't retrieve a perfect copy, you recreate it. And in that process, you often distort it without realizing. You overwrite it, you recontextualize it, you add pieces that weren't there before and delete ones that were. In one chilling series of experiments, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated how easily memories can be implanted. Participants were told they had been lost in a shopping mall as a child, a story that never happened. Yet many later insisted they remembered it. Some even added invented details, describing the color of the mole tiles or the voice of the stranger who helped them. If something as fundamental as a childhood experience can be planted like a false seed, nurtured by nothing but suggestion, then what else in your mind is untrue? Even more terrifying are flashbulb memories, vivid recollections of emotionally intense moments. People often report remembering exactly where they were when major world events occurred, down to the lighting, the smell in the room, the words spoken. But studies show these memories are no more accurate than ordinary ones. They just feel real. The confidence we place in a memory has almost no correlation to its accuracy. But memory is just the beginning. Consider consciousness itself, the internal voice you call me. You think your thoughts emerge from a single unified self, a core, a soul, something central and consistent. But what if this self is an illusion? There's a famous case in neuroscience involving split-brain patients. People whose corpus callosum, the bundle of nerves connecting the two hemispheres of the brain, has been severed, usually to treat severe epilepsy. These patients appear normal at first, but under certain conditions, strange things happen. Show one hemisphere a picture of a chicken claw and the other a snowy landscape. Ask the person to point to related images, one with each hand. The left hand points to a shovel, the right points to a chicken. Then ask, why did you point to the shovel? The verbal part of the brain, the left hemisphere, didn't see the snow. It only saw the chicken. And yet, instead of admitting confusion, the brain fabricates a story. Oh, the shovel is for cleaning out the chicken coop. This isn't just an isolated glitch. It's evidence that your brain will create explanations, whole cloth, when it doesn't have access to the truth. And the kicker, you will believe it. This is not deception, it's confabulation, a process where the brain invents coherent narratives to preserve the illusion of a unified self. You do this all the time. You rationalize bad decisions. You rewrite emotional experiences. You forget things that don't fit your worldview and exaggerate those that do. You unconsciously rearrange the pieces of reality so they tell a story you can live with. This is the engine behind cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when we hold contradictory beliefs or act against our values. Instead of changing behavior, the brain often changes the narrative. It rewrites the past. It reframes events. It justifies. You buy something you don't need, and instead of admitting regret, you convince yourself it was a smart purchase. You hurt someone, but instead of acknowledging guilt, you decide they deserved it. These micro-lies accumulate into the myth of you, And still, we trust the mind because it feels so real. But illusions often do. Consider optical illusions. Look at a flat image that seems to spin, a straight line that appears curved, a still picture that pulses with motion. These aren't tricks, they're failures in perception. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's doing what it always does. Interpreting, interpolating, inventing, or take phantom limb syndrome. A person loses a limb and yet they still feel it. Sometimes they feel pain in a hand that's no longer there. The mind doesn't care about physical truth. It cares about coherence, about preserving the sense of body, of continuity, of I am. What happens when you extend this idea to identity itself? If your thoughts can lie, your memories are flawed, and your brain invents explanations to soothe discomfort. How do you know who you are? Your name? That's a label someone else gave you. Your preferences? A mix of culture, chance, and neurological wiring. Your values? Influenced by your parents, media, peer pressure, and your memories, built on sand. This realization can be deeply unsettling. You start to wonder, am I anyone? Is there a core beneath the shifting stories? The Buddhist tradition has long held that there is no fixed self, that identity is an illusion arising from sensation and thought. What you think of as you is just a bundle of processes, clinging to each other like mist. Modern neuroscience agrees. The self is not one thing. It's a chorus, a storm of neural activity, and at the center, perhaps, nothing. Just awareness, just observation. Take a breath here. Let that sit, not to frighten you, but to awaken something, a quiet reverence for the fragility of the self. Because in this fragility, there is a kind of freedom. If you are not fixed, then you are not bound. If your past is mutable, then you are not its prisoner. If identity is a story, then you can change the plot. This does not make you less real. It makes you fluid. The mirror of the mind may lie, but it also reflects possibility. You are not just who you were. You are not just who you remember being. You are who you are becoming, moment by moment. So ask yourself, if everything you believed about yourself were wrong, if your memories, your thoughts, your emotions, even your sense of self were illusions, who would you be without them? Would you dissolve, or would you awaken? Would you feel lost, or finally free? We are taught to fear this uncertainty, to crave a solid identity. But maybe identity was never meant to be solid. Maybe it was always meant to be like water, shifting, responding, alive. Your mind may lie, but it also dreams. It invents beauty. It imagines futures. It loves. It seeks. And maybe that's enough. So pause, breathe, sit with your own thoughts for a moment. Let them swirl, rearrange, contradict. Watch the chaos without clinging, without needing certainty. You are not your thoughts. You are not your memories. You are the one watching them. And now, having questioned your mind, your memories, your very self, we arrive at the edge of the final question. Because if the self is unstable, if the universe is silent, if time is frozen, and reality might be code, then what remains? In the final segment, we face the most ancient fear of all, the void, and we ask, not just what is in it, but what it means when it stares back. There is a silence deeper than sound, a stillness that exists not in empty rooms or quiet forests, but in the unanswered space behind every question you've ever asked about existence. Why am I here? What is this for? Is there a reason? We don't whisper these questions because we already know the answers. We whisper them because we hope someone is listening. But what if no one is? We crave meaning like lungs crave air. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. We seek it in religion, in science, in relationships, in work. We build cathedrals and conduct experiments, write symphonies and have children, all to convince ourselves that this fragile moment we call life, is for something. We hope that, like a book or a painting, the universe has a creator, a purpose, a conclusion that ties it all together. But what if it doesn't? What if the universe is a blank canvas no one asked for, a machine without intent, a cold, beautiful accident spinning through nothingness, where stars are born and die without ever being seen, and where you, brief, conscious spark that you are, exist for a blink, then vanish, unmarked, unchanged, unnoticed? This is the territory of nihilism, a philosophy that doesn't sugarcoat, that doesn't pretend. Nihilism looks into the abyss and refuses to flinch. It states plainly, there is no inherent meaning to life, no divine plan, no universal script. There is only what is, and what is indifferent. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw this long before the modern world did. When he declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating, he was mourning. Nietzsche understood that when the old gods fall, the scaffolding of meaning collapses with them. Without the divine, there is no ultimate good, no absolute purpose, just endless human desire and the quiet echo of the void. Nietzsche feared that without meaning, humanity would descend into despair, or worse, nihilistic apathy. If nothing matters, why care? Why try? Why love? The danger of nihilism is not in its honesty, it's in its seduction, the way it tempts you to abandon effort, to stop searching, to say, if the universe doesn't care, then neither do I. But Nietzsche didn't stop there. He introduced the concept of the Übermensch, or overman, a person who creates meaning despite meaninglessness, who forges value not from truth, but from will. Become who you are, he said. In other words, if the universe is empty, fill it with yourself. And then there's Albert Camus, the French philosopher who likened the human condition to the myth of Sisyphus. Condemned by the gods, Sisyphus rolls a boulder up a mountain, only for it to fall back down again, for all eternity. It's a cruel, pointless punishment. But Camus asks us to imagine Sisyphus not as broken, but smiling. Why? Because even in absurdity there is defiance. Sisyphus may have no choice but to roll the boulder, but he can choose how he rolls it. He can curse the gods, or he can embrace the task. In that moment, Camus says, he becomes free. So what does it mean, really, to live in a world without objective meaning? It means that love is not written in the stars, it is chosen. That beauty is not universal, it is personal. That morality is not dictated, it is created, day by day, decision by decision. It means that every value you hold must be held intentionally, not because it is cosmic law, but because you decided it was worth holding. You are not handed a script. You write your own. This can be terrifying, but it can also be liberating. Imagine stepping outside the prison of expectation. The idea that you must live a certain way, believe certain things, follow some invisible path. If nothing is predetermined, you are not bound. You are not trapped by fate or karma or divine decree. You are the author of your own purpose. There is a kind of beauty in that, a defiant, human beauty. The artist who creates knowing the canvas will one day burn. The parent who raises a child knowing the world is harsh. The lover who offers their heart knowing it may be broken. The dreamer who keeps dreaming even in the face of dust and decay. This, perhaps, is what meaning really is. Not something to be found, but something to be made. Not given from above, but hammered out in the dark, with trembling hands and stubborn hope. Because even if the stars don't care, you do. Even if the universe forgets your name, you said it aloud. Even if your story ends in silence, it was still a story. There's something else too, something more subtle. The realization that nothing matters can make everything matter more. When you remove the scaffolding of fate, you see the small things more clearly. A child's laugh, the way sunlight moves across a wall, the quiet companionship of a friend. These things don't have meaning because of some grand plan. They have meaning because they are here, now, and because you choose to give them meaning. Isn't that more powerful? To say, I know this moment is fleeting. I know it's fragile. I know it might be meaningless in the eyes of the universe. And still, I care. Still, I love. Still, I create. Still, I wonder. Still, I try. Because to wonder is to resist despair. To question is to confront the void and say, you may be empty, but I am not. Take a moment now. Sit with the silence. Let it wash over you, not as a threat, but as a mirror. Let it reflect your fears, your doubts, your unknowing. Let it whisper that you are a brief flare in endless darkness. And let that be enough. Because in that flare, there is warmth. In your brief time here, you looked into the abyss. And you didn't blink. You stared back. You dared to care. And that is something. That is everything. So, as this journey comes to its close, as we drift away from questions that can never be answered, let yourself rest, not because you've solved the mystery, but because you've faced it. You've stared into space and time and consciousness and unreality, and you remained. Even in cosmic loneliness, the act of wondering gives shape to the void, and maybe that's all we've ever had. And maybe that's all we need. Sleep now, if you can. Not in fear, not in surrender, but in awe, because you were here. You asked, you felt, you burned. And the universe, though silent, was never the same.